Attention, we're back.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rocky.
And I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon.
Welcome back, Megan. How you doing?
Welcome
It was a good weekend of Texas football.
It was busy. We had a busy sports weekend, and I'm glad we did all of it. But I'm telling you, I'm old because I'm feeling it. That's for sure. So
yeah, you said you're like moved. Now your knee hurts.
Yeah, listen,
Not to laugh at your knee pain.
No, please laugh at it, because if we don't, it's ridiculous. Look, I said this on the show before. Like, I don't know if I'm just getting old with my reaction. You know, like I feel like, oh, hey, it's not the end of the world after Ohio State. And I think that old comment came to bite me in the ass, or I guess the knee, as it were, because yeah, I hurt myself doing dumb stuff all the time. And this particular time, my knee just felt pretty juicy after tailgating. And then I managed to like take a step, you know, like it's never anything cool. When I hurt myself, it's never anything cool. It's like I stepped off a curb, or like I tore my ACL giving my friend a hug, like true story. So yeah, I mean, who knows what it is. The knee keeps popping. I'll keep walking. We'll figure it out. But yeah, look, it was worth it. It's victory. Things are good. How are we feeling after that? How are you feeling?
Good. Yeah, it's good. We had a fun weekend at DKR. We'll talk about game day, the atmosphere being back. First tonight, we're definitely going to talk Texas volleyball. You and I were at that big match, but we'll just let everybody know. So we've been trying to do like throw in a Monday night post, like recap the weekend, because there's too much to cover just on Wednesday when the games are happening, right? So tonight we'll talk a little bit. We'll talk Texas volleyball, the big match yesterday. We'll talk Texas, recap the good, the bad, and the ugly from the game against San Jose State. There were so many crazy games. We can't get to them all from college football weekend too. And then Megan, how did all four of our teams lose this weekend? NFL. They were all on the road, but they all lost.
It was not a great football weekend. You know that? Did you ever watch Ozarks?
I started it, but I couldn't stay with it. I just didn't have the time. Yeah.
There's a point in it where Ruthie, one of the characters, and forgive the colorful language here, y'all, but it's our show. I guess we can do what we want. We're grown ass women. But there's a point in the show where Ruth is on there and she says, well, I don't know shit about fuck. And that's about how I feel about my NFL teams after this weekend. Texans coming in, stinking it up. Lions coming in, and just after high expectations,
but at least we're loyal.
Didn't live up to them. But
I actually left my loss. We'll talk about our losses, but I actually left my Titans loss not feeling so bad. All right. So a couple things that you and I were talking about over the weekend. We'll just catch up with ourselves really quickly. We've been trying to find cute game day gear, fun things to do for the game days. This is how crazy stuff has gotten on this planet. $75.
It's a bow.
Bow with a couple little gems on it. This is on the Fanatics website. I shouldn't even share it. And a t-shirt dress, $170.
Can we also talk about this dress for a second? It's $170 for some trash that like I would have worn when I was 5 years old. Nothing about this dress is appealing for a grown woman.
It's cute, but it's a $20 dress. I mean, it looks comfy. Comfy. You could dress it up with boots and some accessories and a jean jacket maybe, but $170.
No, thank you. This is why we make our stuff ridiculous.
Yeah, but anyway, so some really cool news, Megan, going on right now is the Women's Rugby World Cup. I'm kind of doing a little mini update each week of where we stand with the Women's Rugby World Cup. And this week, we got down to who advanced to the quarterfinals, down to 8 countries. We have France, Ireland, England, Scotland, New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, Australia. My prediction still is that New Zealand and England women who haven't lost in like 20-something matches straight, which is insane, are going to be in the final. Of course, the final is in England. So if England wins their home Women's Rugby World Cup, That would be pretty cool. I'm going to be at the final with Richard and Nadia because it's on my birthday and it's a free weekend away from Texas football. So I'm going to go to the game.
That'll be great. That'll be great.
Megan, we had a surprise. Well, not a surprise because you knew it was coming, but you got to try the pecan pie ice cream. Last week we guessed that was the new flavor.
We nailed it. I'm just saying, we nailed it. Shout out to Dougie B for always our food with what is it? Dining with Dougie. I think he was excited about the Bluebell too, and he found it at HEB, and then you found it like 2 seconds later after that.
Yeah, I found it at Randall. I mean, it was stocked full. Like everybody, go get some.
Yeah, it's super good. I have to say, I'm a fan. It was really good. Like it wasn't too sweet, wasn't too ridiculous. Like, you know how sometimes pecan pies can get like that filling just as like pure sugar,
molasses,
like
syrup,
too much
corn syrup filling.
Yeah, it's too much. But this was perfect. Like I thought it had a good balance of like sweet and a little bit salty, and it tasted like pecan pie. It didn't taste like butter pecan. It didn't taste like the pralines and things that they do. It was its own unique flavor. So look, if you're an ice cream fan, especially if you're a Bluebell fan, I highly recommend it because this thing's going to be amazing, I think, at like Thanksgiving time, right? Like, I think that'll be a perfect compliment. Now, I know you're not a fan of pumpkin pie, but I am. And I would say I would put a scoop of the pecan pie ice cream on top of pumpkin pie, get the best of all worlds, all in one little dish. So I'd be good with that.
All right, Yusuf is right. Smash that button if you're not already following. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube so that you can get notifications when we go live. Like we said, we're trying to throw in a Monday night, so we said let's just go ahead and go live. That way we get some conversation going. So yeah, let's dive into it, Megan. We first wanted to talk about Texas Volleyball. You and I were at the game. Nice hat, Texas Volleyball. You and I were at the match yesterday. The match yesterday.
Yeah.
So kind of to catch up to where we were for the people who've missed the first week or two of Texas Volleyball. We know that weekend that the football team was at Ohio State. The women were playing that Friday and Sunday, kind of sandwiching the football. They were in Wisconsin. They took on number 12 and I think it was number 8, Creighton in Wisconsin. They won. They swept both those matches at Wisconsin. That was amazing. They love Tori Stafford. I know you had a great.
Yeah, I don't know if it's you that froze up or me that froze up here, but definitely Tori Stafford. Listen, she's amazing, and Tori Stafford is better than Tree Stanford, so that's very, very clear. Yeah. So all right, y'all. Again, not sure if it's me that's locked up or if it's Rocky that's locked up. She should be back here in a second. But yeah, we were talking about Texas Volleyball. Incredible atmosphere at the Moody. This was the first time that Texas played volleyball at the Moody, and it was wild. Rocky will jump back on. We'll talk about it soon. It was, I will say, it was packed to the gills. It was sold out. And the official tally, the official count there was 10,899. So absolutely incredible. Really, really great show. And I will say this, when Texas Volleyball gets going, y'all, it is pretty awesome. So this team, we know, coming off national championship in 2023, didn't quite live up to expectations back last year, because that bar is really, really high, like it is for Texas football. Volleyball's got that really high bar going. So I will say this, I think Rocky would back me up on it too. This year's team, it feels like this team has filled all the gaps that we had last year. So Texas opened up really, really strong at the Moody. We went 2-0. Texas went 2-0. Looked like it was going to be a sweep. Then Stanford had a really, really nice comeback, started to find their serve a little bit. And it looked for a moment like Texas might have been in trouble. Stanford came back, won 2 sets. So it was tied at 2-2. So you have that pivotal, of course, 3rd or 5th match set there. Stanford put up a pretty good fight. Texas kind of woke up, found their serve again, did really well, and it was incredible. So where I will say that, welcome back, Rocky. So
my computer, I don't know why my big computer just died.
That happens sometimes.
We're going. Go ahead.
Yeah, so third on that 5th set, this was for all of the glory, right? It was crazy. Again, Stanford came in, was really strong. Looked like they might have gotten a reverse sweep on Texas, but then the Texas team woke up, rallied back from down 3, and it was just an incredible set. All of a sudden, the Moody woke up. It was rocking. It was one of the greatest atmospheres I've seen towards the end of that whole match. So, Rocky, what were your impressions about volleyball in the Moody Center?
Okay, so in the Moody Center, it was bumping. When Texas was up big, the music was going loud. Everybody was on their feet at the right times. The crowd was doing the "We Are Texas." Of course, we talked about, said that this was the record-breaking attendance, right, for a volleyball match in the state of Texas.
In Texas, not just for Texas volleyball.
Not just Texas volleyball, but in the state of Texas, biggest crowd ever. So this was amazing because the crowd was in it, but as soon as Texas dropped that third set and then that fourth set, it got sleepy in there, and the vibe went down, and the music even got so quiet.
So that's a thing that I want to comment on. Like we've seen this conversation happen around football, right? There's some folks that don't like the ACDC, the Thunderstruck coming in. Some people think it's like too old. They want something newer, something younger. I will say when Texas volleyball played that at the end of the second set, the place went nuts. Like everyone loved it. I thought that was great. But you're absolutely right. When the team's energy started to die, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it was definitely noticeable. Like it wasn't just you and I that noticed it. The music in the Moody, they stopped playing it loud. They stopped playing it. And for me, I felt like that was a missed opportunity, right? Like I get you want to keep the crowd in it. You want to keep the crowd going. So why turn the music down, man? It had an effect on the crowd. It made it harder for the crowd to get into it. And everybody was kind of like chilling a little bit. So again, credit to the Texas volleyball team for finding their juju and digging deep, man. It was a good match. Stanford really wanted it, but Texas came out in the end.
Moments where Stanford could do no wrong. Like they were digging everything out. They were supporting each other. I mean, they were forcing Texas errors that were just from how sharp they played the first 2 matches to how much Stanford took it to them. And then they survived, like you mentioned, in that 5th match that was 18-16 final. They survived multiple match points that Stanford, it would have been Stanford's match. And it would have, like you said, that reverse sweep. They survived that with the fans behind them. And when it was, I think it was like 8-4, and they were down 8-4 in that last match, and it was like 9-5. And it was just like, it felt like 4 or 5 points. We got to get 11 before they get 6. Like, wow. And they did it. They fought back, got back in it, and forced them to 18-16. That was crazy.
Do you have music going on? I'm hearing weird.
Nope.
All right.
No, I don't have any music.
Okay, I pulled up some. Okay, can we talk about websites that put on sound when you don't want sound? I'm trying to look up stats here. I'm trying to look up getting the digs and all that stuff, and the D1 site just starts screaming music in my ear. I'm like, whoa. That's not what I asked for.
Here, let's play. Let's show them what the Moody Center was looking like when it was full action. Why do we even have that? Yeah, so that was like packed, everybody on their feet, almost 11,000 people. They brought in beach volleyball players. There were the women's basketball players. When they would come on the screen, everybody would get hyped and help cheer for the volleyball. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. So again, specific shout out, like you mentioned, Tori Stafford, she looked incredible. She had, she was just on the attack. She had 18 kills, 6 digs. 10 digs. This woman she was responsible for 20.5 points. Like she was on absolute fire. And then of course, number 23, Carrie Spears, for you football fans, you might recognize her as Marcus Spears' daughter. Also had a really, really great whole match. So again, 14 kills, responsible for 14.5 points. So those two really were I mean, game changers for Texas. Again, those are 2 additions that Texas pulled in this year, and really some intricate pieces of this volleyball team. So again, y'all, we can't emphasize this enough. If you haven't been to volleyball, if you haven't checked it out, get there. The Greg is a great atmosphere. If there's another, opportunity for you to see it in the Moody, check it out there too. But volleyball, and I know this is a bold statement, maybe not everybody will agree with me, but I have said this. I think volleyball ranks up there as one of the top sports atmospheres. I would even put it on par with football most of the time. One of the top sports atmospheres on campus. So if you haven't had an opportunity, you better check it out. So, all right, Rocky. So we definitely going to talk some football here. We're going to jump into it. You ready to roll with San Jose State?
Yes. Okay. Let's get into it. So let's first start talking about the game day atmosphere. We were back at DKR and it was shockingly cool. Like it was a rainy, drizzly morning, dreary kind of morning. And then of course it was an 11 a.m. kickoff, but the crowd was still there. It was a packed Midway and, Bevo Boulevard and all the things. And the stadium was pretty full right before kickoff. The students were there. The students were bright and early. The atmosphere was getting going that morning, and it actually felt a little bit cool because on the September opening weekend, it can be 150 degrees and people are struggling, but it was actually a really nice day, which kind of helped San Jose State stay in that game a little longer.
It did. So look, as much as I like to fuss about it being hot, because it is always hot in those first few games at Texas. You're right. It was overcast, so the sun wasn't really beaming down on us. I don't think it got above like 83 that day. We had some rain, but the upside of that feels great. Downside of that is, when you've got the temperatures in check, it did not affect the California team like you thought it might. But Rocky, I want to ask you this. When we talked about it a little bit, what were your feelings just coming away from that game? Just how did you
felt
feel?
like there was some good stuff to build on. There was some improvements in some areas, like Sark said. There were areas where he was focusing, and where you get what you emphasize. He likes to say that I felt like the things that they emphasized, there were some improvements, and we'll talk about those in our good, bad, and ugly. But I felt there were some things to build on. They left a lot of meat on the bone. Left a lot of meat on the bone. There needed to be more from the offense against a team that gave up almost 300 yards rushing the week before, and Texas struggled to run the ball. I know Wisner was out, and they put a lot on Baxter's shoulders, but I felt like there could have been more. They just left a lot out there, but I felt like that was a stepping stone, right? Some improvement. There were areas of improvement, and that's what we need, week to week improvement, and that's what these games are for.
That is true. That is definitely what these games are for. I think you're being kinder than I felt at the end of the game. I will say that.
Yeah.
I felt like my knee-jerk reaction leaving that game, my immediate feeling was I felt worse or less confident in this team after this win than I did after the Ohio State loss. Again,
I can see that. Yeah.
We're talking knee-jerk reactions here, right? For me, I was disappointed in several areas. We knew that Arch needed to improve, and that he did. I do think he took some steps forward. For me, being impatient, for me, knowing, what we think we know about Arch and what he's capable of and how he can look, it felt like it was a slower progression from what I wanted to see. But that being said, there were definite steps forward. There were definite, his numbers were there. Again, this is another one of those games. If you look at the box score, his numbers were there. He was seeing the field a little bit better. He was hitting his receivers. He was hitting them a little bit better. Not perfect, mind you. There were still some missed throws, but again, you expect that from a young guy. But there were definitely still some things. I'm like, man, we're going to have to see massive change between now, where we are and what the team looks like right now, and before we start SEC play, because Texas got away with a lot of things against, and again, this is no disrespect to San Jose State, but Texas is a more talented team on the field than San Jose State. And I think Texas got away with a lot of sloppy little things that they are not going to be able to get away with when conference play starts.
Yeah, penalties. Yeah.
So
we'll talk
let's
about those.
let's jump into that, Rocky. Like
Okay.
we always do the good, the bad, the ugly. We do it a little bit reverse order. We try to end on some good notes. So let's start with the bad. Rocky, what do you have?
Yeah, we'll go bad, ugly, good, right? All right. For me, the bad was the penalties. Even Sark mentioned the penalties in the post-game press conference, and he mentioned them again this morning in his game week press conference. The penalties were bad. They were one of the worst he's had in his career at Texas. We'll say it was 12 penalties for 115 yards. To compare that, and is it the refs? Let's see, because the same
it's not
game.
the refs. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear blaming.
I'm saying we cannot blame the refs because in
No.
that exact same game, San Jose State on the road in that environment only had 3 penalties for 15 yards. It's ridiculous. It's undisciplined. Sark said it again today that they're lost. They didn't have the mental focus or mental intensity to be disciplined. They didn't take the discipline of what they're doing in practice and following through with that at the game time. Their penalties were on offense. They were on defense. They were on special teams. They were everywhere. They were at key moments that brought back good plays, or on defense, kept San Jose State's drives alive. We know he mentioned Colin Simmons being right now leading the country in penalties. And we'll talk about that in a bit, about why he's playing a little bit out of himself, because we know he's so talented, right? That there's questions on why he's now leads the nation with 5 penalties. But he did talk about the consequences for that. Like in the game, there's immediate consequences. And he talked about there needs to be consequences at practice. So I don't know what they do, because they get what they emphasize, right? And so we know this entire week, one of the main emphasis of the training is going to be penalties. And let's see how it improves next week, because 12 penalties for 115 yards is unacceptable.
I'm sorry. There's no other word for it. There's no other word for it. You say this is the bad. I want to put this in the bad and the ugly and the horrible, right? Like at this point, nothing. Okay, I've got to contain myself when I talk about penalties, because you're right, Rocky. The penalties weren't just numerous. They weren't just silly. They weren't just. How many penalties did we see that had absolutely zero effect on the play? I mean, there were times that we were getting penalties for a block in the back on the opposite end of the field. It did absolutely nothing to advance the play. There are some penalties that I will say, you know what? You probably saved a touchdown here. Or maybe you did, maybe you helped out. Maybe I can understand it. I felt like the vast majority of the penalties that we had in this game were absolutely unnecessary. They were complete lack of focus. They were foolish penalties, period. And that pisses me off. That is something that we've talked about, physicality. We've talked about how this team is smart, how this team is talented. To continue to see issues like this, and I will say this, penalties are on the coach, because this is not a new thing for Coach Sarkisian's team. We have seen penalty problems plague his teams at Texas since he's been here. I can understand it early on. I can understand it here and there. I can maybe understand some penalties that make sense or help a play or save a play. I can understand that. But this wasn't that. This was just unfocused, undisciplined, silly bonehead penalties that, like you said, again, there were times that defense gets a chance to rest. They make a good stop. They're about to go, get their water break and everything. And nope, got to bring them back on because we got a dumb face mask for it, right? We've got, the O-line. For God's sake, how many false start penalties did the O-line have at home? That to me, and again, I don't care if they're young. I don't care if they haven't had that many snaps together. This team cannot have that many false start penalties at home. You just can't do it. You just can't do it.
They lost focus more at home than they did on the road last weekend. And that's something that we'll see if there's a good improvement this coming Saturday, because again, they have the wonderful, confines of home where they can fix these things. And let's see if that's the emphasis this week. It sounds like it's going to be.
It has to be. But again,
it has to be.
I'm getting a little worn out about hearing, oh, we got to work on penalties. Well, yeah, no shit. You've had to work on penalties for the past few years. Like, when does it click for this team? What is not happening in practice to make this make sense? Like, where does the focus go? We've talked about Texas teams, and that can be a critique of Sarkisian's teams too, playing up to the competition and playing down to the competition. I thought San Jose State had a good game plan for Texas. They played well, but they didn't play so well that it would justify these kind of crazy mistakes. Like the time that Texas finds themselves shooting themselves in the foot time and time again. And I agree, Clay. It was 115 yards in penalties, 12 penalties for 115 yards. You're right. If this keeps up, this is not a national championship contention team. It just really
those key penalties can cost you. And we'll talk about the Florida game where penalties literally cost them the game.
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
So let's get to the ugly, Megan. Third downs. That was ugly. 2 for 12 is not championship level. It is not the standard. The average third down was almost 10 yards. Sark talked about going into the season, they have to make the best way to have a good third down is not to be in third down, right? So they had 18 drives and only 12 of them had third downs because they either scored quickly or got another first down on the first or second down. But they had, of the 12 third downs, they only converted 2 of those. And the problem with that was most of them were long, obvious passing situations. 3rd and 14, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 19, 3rd and 25. 4 of those 5 are obvious passing situations. So incomplete passes because there was pressure or the receivers couldn't get open. 1 was an incompletion on 3rd and 3. 1 was 3rd and 9, and it was a completion for 0 yards. That was the DeAndre Moore hit at the line. And the rest were 2 runs that didn't get 1 yard or 6 yards. Like that is an issue, right? You have to put yourself in a position to convert these third downs, and they're setting themselves up for statistically to not get those as often when you're in 3rd and long.
Right. And again, this is the reason I would categorize penalties in the ugly, because a lot of where Texas found themselves in these 3rd and long situations, a lot of that was self-inflicted.
Right.
It was silly penalties that would put them back where they would have been a 3rd and a short, could have had the completion. Nope. We find ourselves yet again behind the sticks because we just weren't focused. So I agree, Rocky. That's something that has got to be cleaned up. Those 2 things, again, penalties and third down conversions. That's just, if Texas can't get those under control, if Texas can't get their head in the game and put themselves in a better position by playing smart football, by playing clean football, that's going to be a problem for this team moving forward. It really is. So certainly something we want to see cleaned up. I'm hung up on those penalties, man.
I know they're eating you.
They're eating me alive.
Right.
So one thing I did want to bring up with the ugly real quick for me, if I can't say penalties since we already talked about it, what I thought was a little concerning was our D line, right? Like, I will say this, let me make a blanket statement. This is still one of the best defenses in the nation, period. I still believe that. I still hold that. I still know that to be true. I think Texas played really well, especially with some of the challenges that they presented themselves. Where I found a little bit of concern, what I found myself in the game going, what is going on here? It felt like our big, dominant, superior D-line just couldn't get much of a push against a very small San Jose State O-line. We talked about this last show. I went up and looked the numbers. Starting from weak side to strong side, you've got the left tackle, 285, left guard, 284, center, 288, right guard, 278, right tackle, 295. These aren't big, bad dudes. They don't have any starters that are over 300. They don't have any starters that are at 300, right? So I was expecting to see Texas have a bigger push against this O-line. I was expecting them to be a little more disruptive there. Now, again, I'm going to credit San Jose State here. We knew they were going to be a passing team, right?
Right.
This is just what their coach does. He is a guy that likes to throw the ball. Rocky, do you have those numbers real quick? How many attempts did they have to throw the ball?
Oh, I don't have it open, but I can go get it while you talk.
Yeah. So what I will say is, because they are a fast passing team, they want to shove it down your throat that way. I can appreciate that their quarterback was making smart, fast decisions. He was getting the ball out of his hands pretty fast. So it didn't give our D-line quite as much time to get to him necessarily, but I still would have liked to see more of a push. I do think that started to happen towards later in the game when San Jose State got a little worn out. But again, when Texas is going up against inferior, smaller talent, you got to be dominant. I want to see them ripping heads off. I want to see them pushing people around like they're a baby in a stroller. Get them out of the way, push them, right?
They threw the ball 43 times and only completed 21 passes.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Less than 50% completion. Hell yeah. Amazing stat for the defense. So I'll put that in the good. But like I said, I'd like to see that push. And again, this is me being incredibly nitpicky right now. But again, this is Texas. We have a higher standard than like, let's just win by most points. You know, not hitting a 50 burger against this team, not covering spread against this team.
A few plays here and there, and 50 points was on the board. The fumble at the end by towards the end by Jarrett Gibson. The goal line interception throw by Arch Manning. There's 14 points right there. So it's just one or two little things that can be cleaned up. Jarrett Gibson had fumble issues last year, kind of got out of the rotation a bit and fighting his way back, and unfortunately he had that fumble near red zone fumble, and those things can't happen, and I'm sure nobody feels worse than he does about that, but you know, it's an opportunity. So Clay
Stewart, thanks for the comment. This is also where the leaders of the team need to step up, getting someone's ass on the sideline. The caveat is those leaders need to not be committing those penalties. Agreed on all points there. Now Rocky, you noticed something on the sideline. You have a really good vantage point. You noticed something on the sideline that I thought, I think that commentary of like leaders need to step up and lead. You had mentioned something to me, and
yeah,
you don't have to go into.
I mean,
no, you don't have to. I mean, but you saw Arch talking to his guys.
Where I sit, we see which players are getting treatment, who's getting on who's working with the coaches, we can kind of see even some of their times their iPads, what they're looking at. Arch Manning had colorful language on the side, getting on some people, and nothing offensive or bad, but just like, come on, you know, get this together.
But I love hearing that,
which was a good fired up, you know, and he wasn't mad. It was just like, let's go. Like a couple of penalties that, you know, and at one point he came back kind of frustrated at his own mistake. Right. That's when people were saying that he was like grimacing or frustrated, or is he hurt? He was. My thought is, if he was still hurt, he wouldn't be out there in the fourth quarter when Texas is up by 30, right? And also, like, you could tell there was some frustration of the way, like, not just his own mistakes, but the way things were getting called back. A great play by Livingston, called back. A great catch by, you know, called back, or a great run by Baxter, called back.
Right.
Those kind of things are frustrating. So when he's back on the sideline saying bullshit, like,
well, look though, but I like hearing that, because that has been right. Like, we want to see our leaders step up. We want to see the guys with a little experience. You certainly want to see your quarterback making it his team and saying, hey guys, and look, I don't care if your leaders aren't getting into your guys when they're not doing well, then are you really a leader? So I liked hearing that. Again,
there's different ways to lead, and
I don't think he did it in a bad way, right? Like, you get on them, you let them know, like, hey, this is not cool. We got to fix this, clean this up, and then you move on. And I liked hearing that that's something that he was doing on the sidelines. So I thought that was a positive. So all right.
Yeah. Well, let's finish with more good, Megan. Let's finish with more good, and then we'll talk a little bit about Sark's comments today. So I have to say the good was the turnovers. We know going into Ohio State, Texas had 24 games in a row, 2 years of consecutive turnovers in every game. against Ohio State and against a true freshman quarterback. They weren't able to finish some of those turnovers. They weren't able to force anything. This game, 4 turnovers. And so I want to look at what they were able to do with those turnovers. 1 interception, touchdown for Texas. A fumbled recovered, touchdown for Texas. Another fumble recovered, touchdown for Texas. Another fumble, and then that's the one where Arch threw that interception in the red zone. But there were also 3 turnovers on downs, and I like to call those turnovers too, because even though they're on downs, you force them to end their play early. So 1 ended up being right at the half, so that was over. Another turnover and downs, Texas got a touchdown from that, and then the last one was a punt. So that's pretty solid. Of the 7 turnovers, 4 got touchdowns. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was, like you mentioned, it was a step in the right direction, right? I will say this, for me, the good. And I know that I've been fussing a lot in this episode. I've been hard. I've got high expectations. Overall, this team did take steps forward. Might not have been as big a steps or as many steps as I personally would have liked to see, but it was progress in the right direction. And frankly, we've got a little bit of time, right? We've got these 3 games: San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston. We've got a little bit of time to figure things out, to work things out, to find out who the right combinations are, find out who your guys are. So overall, I'm glad that Texas is moving in the right direction. What I also thought was encouraging, we gave the wide receivers a hard time after Ohio State. We wanted to see more physicality, help out your quarterback, come back to him if he's struggling, block every now and again. What I did think was a positive was that Arch is finding his go-to. You're starting to see who his go-to guys are. Now, little surprising here, we thought it was going to be Wingo. And again, the opportunities.
It still could be.
Wingo is targeted more than anybody else, but Wingo's got to make, we got to close out. Arch has to have better throws to him, and Wingo's got to catch him, right? But I thought seeing Livingston step up, and Jack Endries too. Seeing Endries come in, I think I really like seeing. We know that when he can, Sark likes to scheme up the tight ends, right? And I think we're starting to see that, and starting to see some of that confidence coming out in Endries. So I liked having a Texas tight end again. I liked seeing him out there. I think he's going to be a solid guy for Texas. So I thought those were 2 really big positives where we were kind of dogging on the team after Ohio State. I thought that was a good development in this game.
Yeah. All right. We were talking about, you just mentioned Ryan Wingo, and we're about to get into Sark's press conference. So let's start there with Sark's comments about Ryan Wingo. He was asked about, Ryan Wingo's numbers aren't great to start. A lot of people are expecting him to be wide receiver 1, either DeAndre Moore or Ryan Wingo, and
Right.
His numbers haven't been great. Some of it weren't great throws to start the season by Arch Manning, and others he got hit right in the hands a couple times and didn't come through. But it's not because he's not a fantastically talented receiver, right? So let's look at what Sark had to say about Ryan Wingo's early struggles and what he expects from him now.
With Ryan, I just think he's pressing a little bit. Ryan is like one of the most conscientious kids on our roster. He works really hard. Like, nobody practices harder than this guy. He wants to do right. He's in the right spots. He wants to make all his plays. Sometimes, not trying so hard is the best avenue, and just playing and relaxing and playing, and he'll get there. I think that we all want him to get there sooner rather than later, and I know he does too. But again, I think that taking a deep breath and letting the plays come to him, and not trying to go make it. I think on that glance throw the other day, I think he was already thinking he was making the safety miss, like in his mind, because he's practiced it so many times. And sometimes it's, let's just catch the ball and go play. But again, he's a fantastic player. He's a great teammate. And we need him. And I think he understands that, and his rapport with Arch is really good. And so we'll find his niche. It's great for him right now that Parker's doing what he's doing, because that's getting a little bit of the attention off of him, and Parker's making his plays when they're coming to him. So that's a good thing.
All right. That's a good thing that he's getting a moment to catch his breath. They're not putting all the pressure on him. We know we saw Ohio State double teaming him and making it hard for him to get involved the first week. This week, they were able to scheme him open a little bit more, but, a couple of throws didn't get to him, and a couple of throws he had opportunity. So I like that Sark is calm and cool. It'll come.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He wants so much to be, to contribute that sometimes you can't. Like Mac Brown said it before too. Sometimes they try too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I agree. I mean, I think this is something the calmer heads will prevail, right? You want to see that out of your coach. The second a coach starts panicking, everything's gone to shit, right? So no, I love that he's cool, calm, and collected. He understands the makeup and the composure of this team better than anybody, right? So I have faith that we've got the talent at wide receiver. I have faith that our guys will get there. We know that, again, in the off season, we know that Arch and Wingo had really good chemistry. And again, to this point, Wingo has been targeted more than in this game. He was targeted more than anybody else was. So it'll get there. That connection will get there. And it was good to see the other guys step up and make sure that, they were picking up where others aren't. So again, that's where depth, that's where trust, that all will come into play as we go. And these are critical games at this time to build that and to continue growing that confidence, right?
Yep. All right. Some of the other key points that Sark had from his press conference today, he talked a lot about with all these staff changes and transfer portal changes, how much extra research they have to do about players that are new to these teams' rosters, and coaching staffs bringing in different styles of play with them, and so it takes a lot more research. So each week they have to go a brand new game. I remember last year him always saying, well, they brought out things against Texas we hadn't seen on film, right? So combine that aspect too, combine that with constantly evolving and changing staffs and rosters. It's a lot of work for them to plan each week, but that's why he really pressed that the players need to, he said they have to do a better job of taking what they've learned all week in practice to put that into the game. He gave the example of, the edge rushers. He told them when the QB does this, you got to go to this shoulder and this and that. And then they were going to the wrong shoulder, the shoulder that they hadn't prepared for, and, gave up some movement on the quarterback. And so those little details matter when it's the difference of a sack for a loss or a scramble for a pass. Like those kind of things really matter. So talk to that about them being more particular on those, taking what they really learned from practice and applying those to the game. I want to talk, you mentioned, Megan, the offense seemed to get all the questions, of course, because they're the ones that seem to be struggling. And statistically, it's not good. They're one of the worst in third down, one of the worst in penalties, statistically, it's not off to a great start. So he was asked about the offense, and he actually said that he's feeling pretty good. I like the way he says good. The way Sark says good, I like it. Anyway, he's talking about the offense that he actually has, feels good about them because they're coachable. So let's hear him talk about that.
Varying game plans. What I like about our offense right now, I think these guys are coachable. When we make an emphasis on things to improve upon, whether it's individual players or as a unit, they've responded. We obviously challenged Arch from one week to the next. I think we responded. And there's growing pains still in there. When we challenged them on, creating more explosive plays, breaking more tackles, I think we need to take practice to the game. I think the detail. But again, we've got some, I hate saying young players, we have some new faces, and there's going to be some growing pains. I wasn't naive to that, to think we were just going to be a well-oiled machine the first month of the season. But I want to see incremental growth. And there were some errors Saturday that need to improve. Our third down pass protection needs to improve, not from a physical standpoint, but schematically of understanding the stresses on our protections, and then who's responsible for those things when they arrive. And we've had a couple breakdowns now through 2 weeks that we need to improve upon. So
all right, I'm pushing a button and you're pushing a button.
Apparently.
I know. Anyway, yeah. So that was Thark talking about the offense. He feels good because they're coachable. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, they should be. They're top talent. That's good to know, right? You don't ever want guys that come in and just they won't listen. So yeah, look, I think again, we have high expectations. We have high standards at the University of Texas, but the coaches know what they have. They know what they're working with. I have faith, like we say all the time, trust the process, trust the system. We have faith that our coaches are going to see what needs to be done. They're going to address it in the right amount of time. Now, I will say this: if we are still talking about these same issues, if we're still seeing hundreds of yards and penalties by the Sam Houston game, if we're still talking about our inability to be effectual in the red zone, our inability to complete a third down, and our inability to have third and short, I will have more concerns. I think at that point, I will definitely be worried. At this stage, second game of the season, there's a lot to learn from. And I think this team will learn. I think the team will figure it out. I think the coaches know exactly what to key in on. And we've got time to make those tweaks for sure.
Yeah. All right. A couple other points from his press conference, and you can go watch it on the Longhorn Network app. And also it's on YouTube. But he just talked about, I thought it's kind of fun. We all know that he's a big fan of college football. Like he just genuinely enjoys college football. So he said he had his new baby boy and they got to watch college football together for their first Saturday together. He talked about watching, other teams struggle. Clemson struggled a bit. LSU struggled a bit. He talked about, watching the OU Michigan game. So he talked about the SEC conference, so many players being ranked in the conference, and that this conference is real and you better come ready to play. And also, I think that was it. He just talked about, the last thing he mentioned was about, Wisner didn't play this past weekend. And, there's no worry to rush them. He doesn't feel the pressure to rush them back if they're not ready. We know Alex January sat out last week too. So give them time. We're fortunate that the next few games are great opportunities for more younger depth to play. So, so many players got to play this past weekend, and that's something to build off of.
Absolutely. So there are two things. Rocky, you said something a little bit earlier, and I wanted to keep it in my mind and touch base on it before we kind of change gears here. You had mentioned, during, how Sark had brought up rosters change. You mentioned that rosters change and that coaching changes, right? That's just the nature of the beast in college football today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really important thing for us to not forget, right? Like the landscape of college football has changed a lot since Texas's last national championship. We know that winning championships takes a combination of talent, timing, coaching, and just a little bit of luck, right? In today's day and age, when you throw in that addition of constant roster overturn, you have coaches that are going in and out. You have the added stresses of NIL. How do you deal with locker room dynamics with NIL and, the portal and roster changes, right? I think that makes today's game so much more challenging than what it was 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. And I will say this, seeing the positive in it, I think there are very few coaching staffs and very few teams that have taken advantage of the portal change and been able to build culture despite all of that than Texas and Coach Sark. I think that is one thing that has really been, for me, one of the most noticeable differences in his teams and what we had seen in the past. And I think that's extra special in this day where you have high turnover with portals. Again, Texas does a pretty dang good job. Generally speaking, we don't lose too many players. We have lost some, Finkley We've, Malik Murphy. We've seen some guys that we love dearly that make business decisions because they need to go on and try to advance their career, and absolutely no hard feelings with that. Totally understand it. But generally speaking, when we lose guys, it's because we have so much talent there. These really talented players make that decision to a business decision to try to go advance somewhere else, right? So I want Texas fans to kind of keep that in mind. Yes, we're being hard on the guys. Yes, we have high expectations, but don't forget to look at how what a good place we're in with the coach, and how he builds that culture, and how the staff builds that culture, and how, despite different players coming in and coming out, they're clicking. These guys like each other, right? They'll get there. They'll figure it out. That's a good thing. So I wanted to kind of key in on that. What you mentioned. Absolutely.
Yeah, coachable's great. All right, so we'll wrap up our thoughts about the game, and I thought this would be a good time to have our little Manning moment. We like to have a Manning moment. Let's go ahead and show. They put together the four clips in one of Arch Manning's 4 touchdown throws. So turnover, touchdown, 4 touchdowns in 5 minutes. Here they
Wild.
are.
For Arch Manning. 3rd down and 3. Manning downfield, wide open, and here's Livingston. Parker Livingston. Look at him go. Just like that. To score again. Quick strike to the end zone, and it's a area of the field. Speedy Ryan Wing goes in the slot to the near side. Here's the play action, a chance for that shot. Downfield, gets it complete. Endries into the end zone. Manning, empty look on 2nd and goal from the 15 to the end zone. And how about a score? And that's 4 for Arch.
And that's 4 for Arch in 5 minutes. But let's not forget, Megan, one of the things that really opened up the game and like really got Manning hype and ready to go was that run, using his feet again. Look at this angle that they put of his run. I hadn't seen it because we were at the game, so I hadn't seen this angle yet.
Watch it, and you saw it there. Manning with time, but does he have an option? Gonna run now. And he does so inside the 10, turns the corner, keeps his balance, and scores. The athleticism of Arch Manning.
Right here at the end. Nice job blocking out wide by Dylan McCutcheon. He's got the ball in the right hand. Now it's in the left. Right foot in, left foot in. Stretches it over the pylon. That's 6.
Wow. What balance. And I'm glad they mentioned the wide receivers blocking, because even Wingo was smart enough to let up at the end to not get a call or a block in the back or something at the end. What about those plays, Megan? What has you fired up?
Absolutely. Yeah, look, in what you were showing earlier, again, I harped on the O-line a little bit earlier. They needed a little bit of work. I thought they weren't getting the push we wanted to see as well. I talked about D-line not breaking through. O-line, I felt could have done similar. But in those passes, if you'll notice, they gave Arch plenty of time. They were doing a really great job. They stuck to their assignments. They gave him a pocket to throw from. They gave him time. And when they did, man, Endries was getting open. I thought that was really impressive, just how wide the heck open he was. And you're right, Rocky, you mentioned in that last little bit, when the wide receivers block, good things happen.
Yes.
You gotta be smart. You gotta be smart. But yeah, more of that, please. We talked about that being a key to the game in Ohio State. We got to see Arch use his legs when appropriate. You take what the defense gives you. We see that here, right? Like that fired him up. It was absolutely, if everybody's covered up and you've got that field, we know that Arch is fast. So loved seeing that. I hope that we have some timely runs. I think, again, we don't want Arch to be a run first quarterback, but we certainly take what they're giving you. Use those legs as a weapon when you need to. So I thought that was really good to see.
All right. So I'm sure everyone had on their bingo cards that the first 3 touchdowns scored by the Texas Longhorns this year would be Parker Livingston. And it is Livingston. He said it himself on his intro video when he was signed with Texas, Livingston, right? And this is what Arch had to say about Livingston.
He's a damn good player. He's going to roll for a white guy, too.
Nobody laughed harder than Kirk Bowles in that clip. You can hear Kirk Bowles with a good hearty laugh. He loved that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that was funny. Anyway,
But again, that to me
Parker's
speaks
on
to the
fire.
but that to me again speaks to the chemistry that they've got, right? Like
Mhm.
they can joke with each other in front of the media about that. I think that's great. One little note before we move on, Rocky.
Mhm.
Parker Livingston, you had mentioned a little bit earlier. I don't know if you saw this. I didn't realize he had wheels like he has. He was clocked at 20.3 miles
Yep.
an hour in this game.
Mhm.
So really impressive that he can book it like that. That is fast. CB, thank you. That's very nice. Today is Kirk Bowles' birthday, 75th birthday. So happy birthday,
75. Wow.
75. Happy birthday, Kirk Bowles.
Wow.
So
Happy
so
birthday.
all
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so anyway, that was our. Let's go ahead and wrap up this talk with just one standout player that you think deserves some props. I'm going to go with Ty Anthony Smith. I felt like watching the game. We knew we were going to see more of him. We've heard all off season that he was really coming on. He, Michael Taft led the team in tackles, but Ty Anthony Smith, I thought, had an impactful game. 6 tackles, a tackle for loss. I felt like he was involved everywhere throughout the game. I really loved seeing him, how they used him in a lot of different ways. And I just felt like every time I looked up, it was Ty Anthony Smith making a play. So to me, I have to give props to Ty Anthony Smith as my just standout player of this game. Do you have somebody
Absolutely.
that you need to give some props to?
Look, I said a little bit earlier, and I'm going to reiterate it. I like Endries coming up. I think he's showing up big. I think he kind of quietly is doing really, really well. CB, you and I are on the same page here, my friend. I just really like what he's doing. I think he's going to give Texas a really good option. He's a big kid who can move pretty good. He blocks well, he gets off the block, and he can get open. And we saw that, this past weekend. I'd like to see more scheming for him. Because he's just one more threat that defenses are going to have to cover. We've got fast wide receivers. If they start to catch the ball a little bit better, maybe get a little bit more physical, all of a sudden, what turns into kind of a liability so far for Texas is a strength, right?
Right.
If Texas can get those wide receivers going and Endries can be that guy that's just an additional piece, man, I think we can see some really fun things out of this offense. So yeah, big shout out to Jack Endries there.
Yeah. Sark mentioned that 5 tight ends played this weekend. 4 of them had passes thrown their way. That when remember that DeAndre Moore is a little dinged up. We don't know what his status is, if he's going to go ahead and rest this week or if he's fine. We don't know yet. So that combined with the, Wingo, what's happening with Wingo? Is he going to try to get him going more? It's going to be interesting to see what's happening with this wide receiver / tight end pass catching situation. Like where is Arch going to start feeling the confidence to throw to? Who is he going to feel the confidence to throw to in there? And then we saw a little bit more Dalen McCutcheon this weekend too, come out a little bit, number 17. So that's going to be fun. All right. So let's wrap up college football talk by talking about this past weekend. Megan, we got to watch some games together on this weekend. And then we had those games like Friday too. And then last week we talked about how many teams were scoring 40, 50, 60 points. This week, even more scored 40, 20 teams scored 50 points, 11 scored 60, and 5 teams scored 70 or more. Guess who scored the most points this weekend?
Was it Alabama?
Florida State.
Really?
77 points.
77. Yeah, I guess. Whew.
Yes, 77 points. Florida State.
I did not see Florida State coming this year.
From 2-10 to dropping 77. Something is
admit
happening there with
yes.
Castellanos.
That
All right.
is the
So
truth.
Texas State, number 7 in the AP poll. Most of the top stayed about the same. So let's talk about when Sark said he watched football this weekend. He kind of mentioned there were some teams that struggled a bit. There were some teams that were playing really well. LSU, Georgia, Clemson, South Carolina, all won their games, but didn't look as efficient or as prolific as they would like to at home. Arizona State laid an egg at Mississippi State. But we got to talk about
Go Bulldogs.
Go Bulldogs. Yeah, they won the game. And they rushed the field. Mississippi State rushed the field for beating 12 Arizona State. And you know what? They should. That's a team that should.
Them.
It just
Bless
tells you
their
how
hearts. Good
down you are. You're
Yeah.
down if you rush the field. So that's all you're telling me is you're down. Enjoy, party, enjoy. You're telling me you're down. Yeah, Mississippi State rushed the field for that. Army went toe-to-toe with at Kansas State and survived and won. Your Michigan State Sparties won in double overtime.
Wild game against the mighty football kings of Boston College.
Boston College. But you know what? Take it. A win's a win. Winning is hard, Megan.
And actually Michigan State I think they swept the Big Ten Players of the Week category. So hey man, I'll take it. Yeah, Michigan State had all Players of the Week. So I'll take it. Look, Sparty isn't always pretty. They don't always get it done beautifully, but dang it, I'll take a win. So
a win's I'm telling you, a win's
2-0. They're 2-0, all right. So we'll take it.
Okay, so let's talk about a game that was actually a wild, fun game. Was Texas State UTSA? It's the battle for I-35, and Texas State, in all their glory, put icy whites for week 2, and they spelled icy wrong. So, of course, that was a big laugh. You know, they looked really good, cool in their cool uniforms. This game went to the last minute. Texas State survives. It was an exciting game. It was packed at the Alamo Dome. And this is like, I think they've only beaten them like once in the Alamo Dome, or this is the first time. I don't even know. But this is like a big deal for Texas State to beat UTSA Roadrunners, who have been really good for a little while now. But let's Megan, we have to talk about USF and Florida. Let's start by saying Florida is going to be still very much, could possibly be a very big trap game for Texas in a few weeks. DJ Lagway, one of the best quarterbacks, been injured. He was ready to come back. Was he not? We don't know. But late in the game, so Florida was 18.5-point favorites, right? They're up 9-6 at the half. Then USF comes in and scores. They go back and forth, and they're holding on to a lead for the last few minutes. And then the Florida defensive player spits, like hawks a big old loogie at the USF player right in front of the ref. So he gets unsportsmanlike conduct. He's ejected from the game. And then they go down the field, and this happens. Here we go.
They got to connect right now. 3 seconds left. 20-yard field goal attempt from the middle of the field. Dramatica for the win,
and there it is. Gramatica, son of famous kicker Gramatica.
I was going to say, how many times have we heard that name break hearts before?
For the win. And how many times have you heard that? You're about to hear that another 20 years, maybe. Anyway, so this player he actually had a shot at a 58-yarder for the win a few minutes before that. And, they consider he has a big leg. He just missed it. And then he gets another shot at the win thanks to that horrible unsportsmanlike that helped him go down the field.
I don't know. It was watching too much of the Eagles or what, but we talked about, I think I'm still red in the face from my diatribe against penalties. How do you spit on somebody? We saw it with the Eagles on Thursday, on Dak.
Yep.
That to me, what do you do? Rocky, you're the head coach. What do you do if you have a player that physically spits on another player?
You start by sending them to the locker room. They're done for the day. Even if the ref doesn't do it, this player got ejected. If the ref doesn't do it, you have to do it. I don't know at what point. I don't know at what point you lose control of yourself that you spit on someone. That is a kind of assault. It's disgusting. I know they're sweating and bleeding all over each other already.
It's different.
But it's so different because to intentionally put your nastiness on someone, and it's a disrespectful thing to do. It's a dirty thing to do.
And then to cost your team. It literally cost the team the game. So I don't know. If I'm the head coach, like that to me, I get in his ass. He's definitely pulled out of the game. It's the end of the game anyway, right? But I sit him. I'm sorry. I feel like you've got to send a message with that. You've got to.
Well, he's ejected, so he's going to be out the first half of the next game anyway. But let's see what Napier does on top of that.
Sit him the whole game. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's
as
crazy.
Of right now, though, Napier can't risk anything. This was the fan base leaving the stadium. They're saying fire Billy, all the Florida fans as they leave the stadium. That was an embarrassing home loss. And next, Florida goes to LSU, number 3 LSU, Saturday night. They go to at 6:30 p.m. And then they go to number 5 Miami. That is looking red hot, also with an explosive offense. Yeah.
I mean, that's where Florida's really going to have the trouble, right? Is they've got a tough ass schedule. They've got one of the hardest schedules in the nation. Yeah, I mean, I'm not envious of Billy Napier and the situation that he's in. But again, to me, it is indicative of like what's going on behind closed doors, that you've got players that are spitting on people. Like, I get that people are frustrated. I understand that game's not going the way you expect it to go, but you can't do things like that. And I don't know if that is just a lack of control or lack of respect for your coach. I don't know if it's a lack of respect for your teammates. I don't know what the answer is at Florida. But man, that's a tough way to lose a game. That's for sure.
All right. CB says it's a culture problem at Florida. We'll see how that works out. USF started the season beating down Boise State, who came in a top 25 team, beat them out of the top 25, beat Florida out of the top 25. Now we're going to see if USF they go to Miami this week. So Miami has USF this week, Florida next week. And then after that, USF has a pretty easy schedule for a few weeks. So that's going to be, they could be 7-0 before you know it. All right. Michigan, Oklahoma. We'll just say Oklahoma looked dang good. Michigan looked dang bad.
And we'll talk about this game a little bit more on Wednesday.
Yeah.
When we're previewing next weekend for Texas. We also certainly want to talk about that future opponent in Oklahoma. And thank you for bringing it up, Rocky, because, you know, it's funny to me when Texas beats Michigan, it's, oh, Michigan is mid and they're bad and they're terrible and they lost everything. When Oklahoma, they want all the credit for it. So we'll talk about that a little bit more on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll dive into that game deeper. We'll also dive into a little bit more of A&M, and we'll know more about Marcel Reed. He went out in the third quarter with falling down, taking a hit, what was happening with his hand or rib, or what's the question. He said on Instagram today that I'll be there for Notre Dame. Does that mean he's going to be?
He might be in a t-shirt, but he'll be there. Damn it!
Have a clipboard and Megan's headphones on, or is he going to be full ready to go? You don't need to tell the other team anything if you don't have to, right?
Absolutely.
That's also a prime time game. Saturday night we have. We have Florida at LSU. We have A&M at Notre Dame. We have all those games when we get home from our game, which is in the afternoon. There'll be lots of great night games. So let's just wrap up, Megan, with telling everybody what happened to our NFL teams. You and I each have 2 teams. I'm Cowboys. I'm a Tennessee Titans, and then Cowboys. You're a Lions, Houston. All 4 of our teams took L's on the road this week.
Hot garbage.
But most of them are one possession losses, except Detroit, who got handled.
Hot garbage. Look, I in Dan Campbell, I trust, I get it, but it was hard to stomach. I mean, that O-line could not do a damn thing to save their lives. And and I will say this, Campbell's gotten a lot of criticism because he didn't really play his O-line guys very well together in the preseason games. Like, what is preseason for if not for that? A lot of criticism there. We saw a lot of miscues on that O-line. I got to tell you, Rocky, there are times that I have looked at these Detroit Lions and my Texas Longhorns, and there are a lot of parallels between what was going on last season, some concerns I have this season. So we'll see if that continues to pan out. But yeah, man, Detroit was a painful game. And of course, after years and years of me holding out on paying for the NFL Network, because it is hard for me to watch the Lions sometimes, I finally caved. I finally caved, and what do? They lay an egg so I could watch it and pay extra for it. Thanks, guys.
All right. So most people are also Cowboys fans too. I think most people left feeling really good about Dak's performance at Philadelphia. They could have won that game if there were a couple more catches, but let's just say the Giants come to Dallas. All of our teams have home games. They all were away this week, so hopefully we get 4 home wins. The Giants come to Dallas. Chicago, who were looking really good last I saw Monday Night Football tonight, they come to Detroit, and Tampa Bay, who lost to the Falcons, come to Houston. Monday Night Football, Rams come to Tennessee. Yesterday, when we were watching the games, we had the multi-view because all three of our teams are not only taking an L, they were all taking an L at the same time. Again, this Sunday, three of our teams are on at the same time, noon, and then Monday Night Football, you get your Houston Texans.
I do want to point out, though, shout out to Gunnar Helm of your Tennessee Titans. He's looking good. That was a good pickup for him. I feel like he's found his home at Tennessee. And also Jay Witt. Look, I know that he beat the Texans, but Jay Witt had a good game. He's looking awesome. He was in there in the mix with everything, blocking well. Gonna say that, a wide receiver that blocks well. And he was looking impressive. So some lifetime Longhorns looking pretty good out there too. So that's really exciting.
Right. CB reminded us there were a lot of Longhorns in that Broncos Titans game. They took a big picture together too. That was really nice. Yeah. So I feel good about my Tennessee Titans. It's going to take some time, but Cam Ward has something special, and hopefully we keep building around him. So,
yeah, it looks good. Yeah. And Jahdae Barron, and I apologize, Rocky, but Jahdae Barron was the one that kind of sealed the game for Denver. So
yes, he did.
You hate to see it when it's against your team, but good for Jahdae.
I'm happy for the Longhorns to all play well and do well. Absolutely. I wasn't expecting Tennessee to start with a road win against the Broncos defense, but they played well. They played good enough. All right. Anyway, Megan, glad we got to throw together something on Monday. We like to wrap up the weekend because there's so much to talk about. Only talking Wednesday is not enough, but we will be back Wednesday because then we can dive into more of college football weekend ahead. Texas football. We're hosting UTEP this weekend. Sorry, I'm already jumping ahead. UTEP this weekend. So we'll talk about all that on Wednesday, and we'll go live Wednesday at 8 p.m., the usual time.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all, again, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We appreciate you being here. Again, on YouTube, we are at Fire the Cannon Podcast. On Twitter and on Insta, we are Fire the Cannon and the #1. We always appreciate y'all being here. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate y'all jumping in. So we will see you Wednesday. And until next time, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky. Sorry about the technical difficulties. And we
are Fire the Cannon, y'all. Let's go.
Let's go.